Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me remotely, we have Vin Paolozzi. He's the Chief Investment Officer at IPG Kinesso, and we'll be looking at how advertising and media has been impacted by the coronavirus and get his outlook in general. Vin, thank you so much for joining us. And, although you've been with IPG for some time now, you were recently named Chief Investment Officer of IPG's Kinesso Holding. What does that mean, and what's your focus these days?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Jill. First off, I'd start with, over the last few years, we've certainly been on a journey here at Kinesso, as well as all of IPG. And it really started a couple of years ago with the acquisition of Acxiom. Back in those days, we certainly realized the importance of data and analytics and how that helps transform and shape the way our clients think about marketing and the aspects of their business. I think as we were going through that integration of Acxiom, we started to understand that there's really a gap in the industry between the back office MarTech that clients are utilizing and the front end applications, the media activation. And so more recently, we launched Kinesso with a focus on developing that application layer between MarTech and AdTech to close that gap, or what we're calling a market intelligence engine that really, again, connects those dots between MarTech and AdTech. My role within all of that as the Chief Investment Officer is really to identify and develop emerging data and technology investment strategies that are really evolving the approach to automation, helping our clients really understand the connection points of data and how that comes to market in their marketing applications. That also includes all of our strategic partnerships with major partners like Google, Facebook, Amazon, or a host of other major technology and media partners across the ecosystem.
How would you describe the current market, and what, if any, changes is that requiring of you in your role?
Yeah, well, it's hard to talk about the market today without certainly talking about the coronavirus, and I think we're honestly still understanding and realizing the full impact that it's having on the entire economy. I think what we're doing right now, and with the help of our sister agencies like Magna and the intelligence division at Magna, we're watching things like the consumption behaviors across the media landscape. How consumers are starting to view media and where they're going these days. Also, how that's affecting things like client spending. Certainly, there are categories and segments within the industry that are more affected, and others that are looking for new ways to adopt. And I think in challenging times comes a lot of opportunity for innovation and new ways of thinking. There's maybe more so now than ever, a need for effectiveness and efficiencies, and how clients start to truly understand their consumers. And more importantly, how they're messaging those consumers with a heightened level of sensitivity in the current ecosystem. I think our role within all that is really to help those clients, again, navigate that world and how they're using technology, data, and technology to really transform the way they think about how they go to market and drive value for their business.
All right, and what's on the horizon as we think about looking longer term? Any new exciting opportunities?
Well, I think one of the most exciting opportunities that we're working on today is the work that we're doing with the Ad Council. So you might have seen over the weekend a number of ads coming out about the virus. I think what's really, really unique about our approach to it is with our addressable automation and activation arm at Cadreon, we're actually approaching it slightly different by using targeted media to be able to identify either people with the virus to provide them messaging to help them, or just common messaging to people about messaging like stay at home. So really applying the technology to the real world practice of getting the word out there. So I say that's the first exciting thing. I think a good portion of our time, though, is truly spent on how do you navigate this new world of identity or an audience first approach. And there's been a lot of conversation over the last few months around the deprecation of the cookie, which is how we use technology to identify audiences in the past. And as those things move away, you have to find new opportunities and new ways of connecting to audiences that are most meaningful to your clients. And I think over the past few years, there's been this explosion of data and technology companies across the industry. That's added massive amounts of complexity, and it's led to things like lack of trust within the industry. And so we've started to see evolve over the course of the last few years, also things that we saw happen in places like the financial markets when they went through their evolution of how data and technology transformed the financial markets. There's this institution now of new standards and practices and even regulation coming to market. And now as we push forward, we're certainly looking at how do we lead really first with digital responsibility and as the foundation to how we approach all of our connections to providing solutions and opportunities for our clients. We think digital responsibility only goes so far. It starts with certainly how do you make sure you're getting consent and understanding what what consumers are doing in the market, but it goes beyond that to ethics. What's ethically right for your business and for our clients' business? And so there's new emerging ways around consent management that we're really diving into. And there's a need now for new tools that help us measure things like compliance and how people will have to connect to those audiences within this world. For that's led to a lot of consolidation over duplicate offers in the marketplace. And again, our primary focus is around how do you connect those dots to data to help it inform that audience first approach for our clients.
All right. And for example, reshaping some of the ways that you're working with partners.
Yeah, so I think we've, again, talked a lot about consolidation over the last couple of years and really identifying how do we minimize those partners that have those connection points and actually get closer to bringing the client closer to the media partners that we work with. That's helped us start to think about how we reshape the tools that we use. And a good example of that is even a company called NIAX that is actually built off of the Nasdaq technology that's helped us think differently about things like contract management and how do we put in place contracts with our partners that give us compliance mechanisms to be able to measure the effectiveness, how we're complying in the world of regulation. I think that's also led us down the path of thinking about new ways to think about audience and identity. And we're working with companies like the IAB around their consortium for how publishers are going to approach first-party audiences within their environment, or working with someone like prebid.org to understand the signals that are happening across technology, again, to understand those audiences holistically, but with, again, that digital responsibility in place first and foremost.
If those watching the ad markets now remember one thing, what would be your best advice?
I'd say right now, just given the complexities, there's certainly a need to be patient. I think we're all learning how to navigate this new world and trying to find ways that are going to bring real value back to clients. And in order to do that, I think you have to think in ways that are much more flexible than they have been in the past to be able to identify that new value. And then you have to come to market with real opportunities that think about digital responsibility and ethics and how you're approaching things like consumer consent. And the last piece is realizing how do you come up with unique solutions that allow data to really drive the way towards an audience first approach.
Anything else that you would like to share before we wrap up?
Yeah, no, Jill, I'd really love the opportunity to take a minute and give a quick shout out to all the essential workers there. I mean, whether you're a medical professional or a first responder, someone who's a grocery store attendant, or even someone working in a bank today, there are a lot of people that are still going out to work every day and putting their own health and well-being as well as their families at risk, and all to try to help others around them. So those are the real heroes of today. And if you have a chance to really speak to one of them or run into them, please do so with kindness and ask them and say thank you for the work that they do.
All right, Vin, thank you so much for wrapping up on that sentiment and for joining us on Trade Talks.
Thank you for having me, Jill. It was a pleasure.
All right, and thank you for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.